welcome to the Because and Effect podcast, first one of 2022. My name is Nolan Bicknell, and I'm now joined via Zoom by Tom Brick. He is the new board chair of the Winnipeg Foundation, but has also been on the board for, I think, since 2013, and is just generally a philanthropist, a volunteer. He's done so many things on so many boards, it would take forever to name them all. Tom, thank you for joining us today on the podcast.
Great to be with you, Nolan.
So we wanted to just have you as our first guest of 2022 because we're kind of at the foundation. We're in a bit of a, forward-looking transition. We have Sky at the helm now. Sky Bridge is our new CEO. I know you were a part of the sort of search party that kind of brought Sky in. We'll talk about that a bit later, but maybe just before we get into foundation business, how have you been handling the pandemic for the last going on 3 years? What's it been like for you and your family, and just in general, like how have you been doing for COVID and everything that's happened?
Well, everybody's at a different point in their lives. For me, it was really interesting. The pandemic hit just as I was getting ready to retire. So I spent kind of the last 2.5 months of my career in the working world dealing with the pandemic. So I have some appreciation for what working people are going through. My retirement has been fantastic, but not what I expected it would be to this point. But, quite frankly, I think my family and I have been doing well. We've stayed healthy. We've had a granddaughter join our family during the pandemic.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I think that was probably the most stressful because they're in Toronto, and we went quite a number of months where it just wasn't safe for us to go and visit. But, overall, I think our family's adapting quite well and doing our best to keep each other safe and keep our friends and family and community safe, and hopefully get out of this sooner than later.
No kidding. That's all we can really do at this point, is just try to stay connected and try to keep community alive in some ways, right? I see the bass guitar in the background there. Have you been practicing a lot, or?
Yeah, you know what? I've probably played my guitar more in the last 2 years than the last 20. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. I keep telling people like that we're going to have a renaissance of art and music and everything. And it's, you can already tell people are just clamoring to see live shows again. What are you most looking forward to when sort of things open up again? Maybe Jets game, maybe things like that. What are you most looking forward to?
So Jets is interesting. I mean, I have been to Jets games while they were playing, and we'll see how that goes. I think, I love to travel, and travel has been really a difficult thing to do for the last couple of years. So I very much look forward to that. But, you mentioned live music, and we have, Winnipeg's a cultural mecca, right? For theater, music, dance, sports, everything. So I really look forward to that fully opening up. We've had a couple of times where we thought, okay, this is good, but we're back where we are.
Yeah, you keep seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and then the light keeps moving that much farther back. The goalposts keep getting moved out over and over, but yeah, it just seems like soon we have to get back to some sort of normalcy soon. But do you think that there is going to be a new normal? Like I've heard two arguments. Like one, that the world has changed and there's going to be pre-COVID and post-COVID, and nothing's going to really, be normal again. Or do you think we're going to actually return to work, go back to the office, go back to, business as usual? Or how do you think that's going to shake down?
Yeah, as a friend of mine says, the before time. And so look, this is a worldwide event that's significant. I don't think it's possible for us as human beings to go back to what was. It makes you question a lot of assumptions on how things are organized, etc. And so, it is amazing what organizations have had to do to adapt. Things that they might have studied for a couple of years got done in a month. And, we find out what works and what doesn't work, and technology continues to evolve. And so, going back to what was, I just can't see that. I think the world will continue to evolve for the better, I would hope. And we learn our lessons and how to incorporate them. Not in every country, but certainly in countries like Canada, work-life balance, it's a big challenge. And I think organizations and individuals have had to learn more about boundaries and flexibility. And it'll be interesting to see how we incorporate this into kind of the new normal, as you call it, because I think that's very important.
Yeah. You talked, I think before we started recording, just about the Zoom calls and just sort of the new way of doing business, maybe within the context of the foundation and all of your work volunteering and stuff. Like, how has that affected how business is done, you know, from the foundation's perspective? Because we knew Rick was leaving for a long time. We knew that we had to find someone new. We didn't know that that would be happening in the middle of a global pandemic, right? So maybe take me back to the start of the sort of committee to find Sky. I don't know what the official title was, probably not that, but you know, once that decision was made and Rick was stepping down and we knew that we were going to be looking forward, take me back to that time. What was your mindset? What was the process? What was everything that kind of went into that decision?
Right. So once it became clear that Rick was going to be retiring, when he was retiring, you know, take a big gulp because Rick, 23 years, you know, his legacy is incredible. But Rick has never pretended that the Winnipeg Foundation was about him. It would have been a disservice to him if we couldn't find a way to continue to build on his legacy. So I was given the responsibility of chairing the CEO search committee. So, you know, the first thing I had to do is find out what did the board want. So come up with kind of a terms of reference for the committee and a process so that it would be clear who does what when and what our timelines are and what our authorities are. Once we did that, then the really important part was putting a team together from the board so that we'd have a diversity of views and experiences and people who have the time, because it is, you know, it's an interesting process. It might be whatever, 4 months. In the first month, you know, not much happens. Second month, well, I can tell you that last month is a really busy month. And so, you know, that's an important component. And then, of course, you need staff resources too and professional resources. So, you know, process is really an important part of anything in governance. And so the first part was make sure we had a process that everyone agreed would be the right one at the right time for our organization. So I think that was the most important thing was starting with that. And because if you don't have that right, then you're probably not going to get the right team. And we had a great team.
For sure. You seem like a big process guy. Was that from your parents, or like, where does that, is it from just working in, I think you worked at the Cambridge Credit Union. Is that right? So like,
Cambridge Credit Union,
obviously finances needs process behind it, but like, where does that come from of just being aware of how important that is?
Well, I think it's really important when you're on a board of any organization, because nobody has the authority to do anything on a board. It's what you do collectively. So, you know, when you're making decisions and you're dealing with something, you better agree on what the process is first. Process is a big friend, big friend. You also have to be careful that it doesn't become some bureaucratic exercise or paralysis by analysis. But if you agree on a process, then it saves a lot of, you know, heartache as you move through whatever issue you're dealing with.
Yeah, very well said. So when Sky came across your desk, or came, you know, what was your impression? And, you know, obviously I've been at the foundation coming on 8 or 9 years now, and I've never been this optimistic about the direction that the foundation's in. I think Sky's an incredible leader. Every time he talks, I just go, yeah, that's a good way to put things. Like, he's just so eloquent and so smart. But I'm just curious of your first impression and like how that interaction went and what you thought when he kind of came across your desk.
He literally did come across my desk because it was on a Zoom call.
Oh, there you go. Exactly.
Which it's kind of ironic. It was the second time in a number of months I'd been involved in something like this, and I never imagined I'd be meeting people through Zoom, potentially hiring them down the road. Anyways,
well, it's a whole different dynamic too, right? Like, obviously I started this podcast in person, and then now I'm having to, and it is doable, but it's not there. It's not quite the same as, you know, shaking the hand, looking in someone's eye and being in person. So what was that dynamic like going across over Zoom?
Yeah, no, it's for sure. It was, well, you know, he was, with his TV background, it's probably a lot easier for him than it was for all of us on the committee. But look, I mean, you know, you go through a process where you're trying to, get a better insight into candidates, their background, what their thinking is, what from their background would be relevant to them leading, their view of what they see as the future, how they lead, these types of things. So, you know, obviously we had a very good first chat with Sky, or there wouldn't have been a second or subsequent chance. But and I think it's another reason why you have to go through a good process. I'd never met Sky, didn't even know about Sky, and I don't know how many, if any, in our committee did. But we had a very good process that went out to the marketplace to really uncover individuals. And obviously Sky, did a good job. Not to spoil the ending, but you already have. So, I don't want to spend too much time talking about that. But again, the process was important to uncover someone that, you don't necessarily know, because, human beings were funny, right? As soon as somebody announces they're retiring and the position's open, you immediately start thinking of people, and everybody does that, right? But you can't become focused on that. You have to broaden the tent and make sure you think this through and follow a process. So obviously Sky did great.
Yeah, awesome. So looking forward, obviously Sky's at the helm now, and we're but the foundation, I always, the metaphor I always see or use is it's a giant ship and it's going in a specific direction. Yeah, we can kind of tilt it a little bit, 1 or 2 degrees, but for the most part, we're going in a direction, and we're going in a strong direction. There's millions of dollars going out the door every year, over 1,000 charities and nonprofits that we're helping. But what do you see as those kind of like 1 degree left or 1 degree right, as far as like different directions that the foundation is going to be moving in the next 100 for the next 100 years of the foundation's existence? What do you see that's going to be slightly different, or is it stay the course, or what's your mindset?
Well, so this is a very interesting time. We're starting our second 100 years, right? I've never really been involved in organizations starting in second century. That in itself is kind of mind-boggling. But it also speaks to the role the Winnipeg Foundation plays in our community. So this is a really interesting time. Sky started, essentially the end of April. He had a nice opportunity to spend some time with Rick before he left, and that was great. But anyways, you finish off the year and a new year coming up. So I think the most important thing we're going to do this year is exactly what you just talked about. Let's talk about that future, because our strategic plan is coming to an end, and I know everybody on staff is engaged in where this is going. Again, you have to put a good process in place, and I think Sky, working with the board, has put a very good process in place over a long period of time, so that we can come to the plan that will continue to move us forward. I think you mentioned I joined the board in 2013. That sounds about right. And there's things we're doing now that we didn't really talk about, or we weren't sure if that's where we should go back then, and they're a big part of what we do now. So I can't tell you what we're going to be doing in 100 years. I can tell you what our vision is and what we're going to be moving towards. But strategies, come and go based on the environment, but the vision stays. So, we'll be working towards making sure that this is a community where life flourishes for all Winnipeggers. I mean, that's what our vision is.
That is the goal. Have you always volunteered and found this valuable in, and as a part of your career? Has this a thing more later I was looking at all of the different boards: Manitoba Blue Cross, ICD Manitoba chapter, Assiniboine Park Conservancies, Mount Carmel Clinic, Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, Phoenix Soccer Club, the Rusalka Ukrainian Dance Ensemble, which my mom is actually a Ukrainian dancer to this day. She's part of a group called the M&Ms, so shout out to them.
Right on.
And it's called M&Ms is short for menopausal mamas. I don't know if that's public knowledge, but they almost always get gold in there. Anyways, congrats to my mom's Ukrainian dancing group. But I mean, where did this, the service mindset come from? Was that instilled at you in a young age? Is it more later in life? How did that come to be?
Yeah, I'd have to say at a young age. My parents, but in particular, my dad, was very involved in a lot of organizations, charities and cultural organizations and these types of things. So I just saw him doing these things all the time, and he seemed busy. It just seemed normal to me. I didn't really think much about it until I was in my mid-20s or so. And then I got involved in some organizations, and, you talk about these things I was involved with. I can tell you in every case, I got way more out of it than whatever people think I put into it. I mean, the people you meet, the knowledge you gain about your community, about whatever issue it is you're dealing with. And when you move the needle on whatever it is you're moving, it's a collective celebration. Well, I've met so many incredible people through it. It's that simple. So it's not something I did later in life. I can tell you that I've done it through my whole life. My dad told me this. I don't remember how old I was, but I was probably a teenager or something. We were probably talking about this topic. And I know it wasn't his quote, and I can't remember whose quote it was, but he used it often. Community service, volunteerism is what we do to live in society. This is the rent you have to pay. And you have to be involved. If you're capable of being involved, if your circumstances allow you to be involved, you have to contribute. So, I don't ever remember a conscious decision getting involved. I know how I got involved in most organizations that I've been involved with, going back to some of my first ones. Actually, the very first board I probably sat on was the board of the Rusalka Ukrainian Dance Ensemble, because my knees were shot and I got married, and now I had a full-time, career, and my passion had to be put to the side. So
you were a dancer? Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh yeah, that was a big passion of mine. Yeah, I had so many great experiences because of my association with Ukrainian dance, and in particular Rusalka.
Awesome. Yeah. So were you doing the coffee grinder move and all those jumps and everything? Like you could.
Yeah, jumping was my thing, actually.
Awesome. That's so good. My cousin Larissa is actually a professional. She travels all over the world, goes to like Brazil, and it's with what's it called? Vahone or Vohun out of Edmonton. And
they're one of the top groups. Fire literally is what it means.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for her.
Well, talk about knees. She's had like multiple knee surgery. I don't think it's very good on the joints, that Ukrainian dancing,
It's not, especially for males. And I can tell you, as a guy who just got into his 60s, there's some things coming home to roost.
Oh, geez. Get those ice packs out.
Need a few buddies.
Amazing. So you just started retiring, but it seems as though you're not any less busy, right? But what does retirement look like for you? Are you going to continue kind of participating in boards and doing things like that? Are you going to take some time off and relax a bit? Or what's your plan for the next 10 years of your life?
Yeah, 10 years is a long time. But you know what? I do enjoy community work. A lot of times, that involves being on boards, but it's not strictly being on boards. There's many ways to contribute. So, I don't know, the next 5 years or so, I think I've got enough to keep me busy enough. I do want to watch my grandchildren? I don't want to put pressure on my kids. His grandchild at this point grow up. I want to spend a fair amount of time with family and friends. I've had a very busy life. And if I do look back, I wish I'd had more time to spend with friends in particular, and I'm really enjoying reconnecting with friends that I haven't seen as much as I would have liked to over the last few decades.
For sure. Has the pandemic changed your approach to anything like that? Family, friends, work,
Yeah. Well, I think it's made you realize even more, clearly how important these connections are. So, certainly, while times were good there for this nice little window we had, whatever it was, 6 months, saw a lot of friends. But we have, had our virtual parties online and these types of things, and just trying to find new ways to connect and make sure everybody feels good about themselves and where they are. It's a very stressful time for everybody. So, this is try to connect, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's the community and connection are the things that I keep coming back to, because that's the thing that I missed. I grew up on computers. I've been playing video games and being in online world since I was, 5 years old. So that transition didn't really affect me, but it was like when my hockey team couldn't play or my volleyball team couldn't play, or when I couldn't go and do the community things or even going to work and, whatever it is, going for a beer with people after that was the thing that I was like, okay, we can't lose that, because that's what really affected my mental health and the mental health of those around me. And I think I don't know if it's short-sighted isn't the right word, because we obviously had to make sure that nobody got sick that couldn't get sick. But I'm trying to find the balance of yes, we have to keep everyone sick, but we also can't go into a 10-year mental health pandemic after this this virus pandemic is dealt with. How have you personally been dealing with the mental health struggles that everyone is currently going through because of this like mass traumatic event that we're all living through together? Like how have you and your family sort of coped with the mental aspect of things?
Yeah, there's no question. It's a challenge. And we've got people in our family who are 95 and people who are 15 months old. And so, everybody's got different ways of different stages of life and different challenges of dealing with these things. I don't think there's any one thing we've done. I think it is about trying to stay connected, making sure people aren't isolated, which is, and it's not just, my father-in-law is 95 years old. He lives on his own. He's incredibly healthy. But he's 95 years old and we all have challenges, right? I've got a daughter in her mid-20s, just started her career. She loved going to work and now she's been working out of her home for 2 years, right? And so just simple things. I think back, like I say, Friday, going out for a pop after work, not so easy to do. So how do you get to know people? Quite frankly, it's a challenge for boards as well.
Right.
Because, I was saying earlier, no one person on a board makes a decision. You do them collectively. And boards are social organisms. That's what they are. And they require understanding and trust. And it's tough to do it when you don't socialize in the normal ways, which includes talking for 15 minutes before a meeting, talking at a break, going out with somebody for a bite afterwards, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Or social events that you might have, not just with the board, but board of management, and these types of things. So the mental health thing, I think we've just tried to, within our family, just try to make sure people don't feel isolated. Notice when maybe they're not as up as they normally would be, and try to understand it. And we all go through this. I'm an optimist by nature. So I try to stay positive, and I kind of a lot of times go, well, it's not as bad as,
Right.
So, but yeah, what's a challenge for everybody? And all families, if you've got family, have to work with each other and stay connected.
Yeah. What's it been like growing up and kind of like having this career in Winnipeg where everyone says it's kind of like a big small town, everybody knows everybody? Obviously that's kind of a dual-edged sword there. Everyone knows everyone, so it's great, but also everyone knows everyone, so if there's a misstep or something, everybody knows it too. So maybe just speak to Winnipeg in general and sort of the the community mindset that we all have had and have had to have just to be able to survive on this prairie when it's minus 35 out or whatever it is today. But just talk about Winnipeg and the connections. Sure. There.
Yeah, that's absolutely, your insights are bang on. I mean, this community is pretty isolated. Through our history, we've had to learn to depend on each other. That's just the way it is. And, it's a connection point. And transportation has been a big part of our history. And so that's kind of a nice kind of metaphor for how we all have to connect. So, in Winnipeg, because it is, like you say, a small big town, there's nowhere really to hide. If you don't kind of try to conduct yourself with some integrity and honesty, etc., it's a tough community. If whatever it is you're trying to do, business or arts or whatever, your reputation matters because there's nowhere to hide. There's some pretty big places out there where you can get away with things because people don't know. And I'm not saying that makes them bad communities. I'm just saying, it's just tougher. Where you grew up in Russell, right? Well, everybody knew what was going on, right?
exact same vibes. Yep.
And
for those of us that got in trouble quite a bit, it was kind of tough to, always have everybody know your business a little bit.
Yeah.
But, yes.
Well, it's not quite the same here in Winnipeg. It's a little bit bigger, but nevertheless, you know what I'm saying. So I think it's important that, people think about how they want to conduct themselves.
That's it
shouldn't matter where you are, but it just, in Winnipeg, not a lot of secrets if you have problems conducting business, whatever, with people.
Yeah, I'm reminded of certain NHL players. You know, you can kind of get away with things in Winnipeg or in, you know, New York because you're a big fish or a small fish in a big pond. Whereas in Winnipeg, all eyes are on you and you have to conduct yourself in a certain way. So that's
very true.
Very true. So Tom, at the end of our time together, we do a segment called Just Because. It's 7 questions that I ask all my guests about the causes you care about and the effect that it has had on your life. You okay to go through those with us right now?
Let's go. Lucky
okay.
7.
Right on. Oh, I got to pull them up here. Question 1. What is the very first cause you even remember caring about?
Well, it depends how you define cause, but, you know, I'll go to kind of organizational stuff. So you mentioned Mount Carmel Clinic. So I was pretty young guy when I got on that board, recruited by a gentleman named Wayne Scarrow, whom I had incredible respect for. And I really didn't know all that much about Mount Carmel when I got on there. But wow, what an education that was for me. I've spent a lot of time in what we call the North End, my Ukrainian dancing days, and I had a lot of friends, and I worked in the North End. But I really didn't know that much about Mount Carmel Clinic. And so I sure learned a lot about community-based healthcare, and how the community knows what's going on and what the needs are and how innovative they can be and the partnerships they would develop. So I you know, just incredible learning journey for me. Things like the Ann Ross Daycare. And we had this dentistry program where in partnership with the U of M Dental School, students would come out under supervision and provide dental care to people who couldn't get dental care.
Amazing.
Tough to eat if you don't have teeth.
No kidding.
You know, I just learned so much because we started every board meeting with a kind of presentation from different parts of the organization. So you quickly got a pretty good understanding of what was going on beyond, you know, kind of just the broad strokes.
Yeah.
So I remember that really, it was an absolute beacon in the community. Still
awesome. Great answer. Yeah. Beautiful. Question 2, if money and politics and logistics and process were no issue at all, you could just snap your fingers and something would happen. What's the first thing you would do in support of your current cause?
Well, I don't know if the first thing I would do, but the result would be that everyone's healthcare needs could be taken care of. And I think I would have said that probably before COVID, but oh my God, if this pandemic hasn't taught us anything, it's about how important health is. Yeah. And you can never take it for granted. And, you know, it's a very complicated field. But since you were giving me this genie in the bottle opportunity, that would be it for me. And I guess the only thing I'd say, kind of bringing it back to real world, is as we come out of this pandemic, you know, we as Canadians are going to have some serious discussions about how we ensure that universal healthcare doesn't just survive, but thrives and has resiliency.
Yeah.
And can do what we all want it to do.
Yeah.
People are doing incredible work right now in our healthcare system, but it's not really built for what we're dealing with.
Very well said. Yeah. My mom is a nurse and my girlfriend partner is a midwife. So I know firsthand, like all of the struggles that people are going through right now. And I think the word that comes to mind is sustainability. Yeah. Like, yes, we're currently handling things, but there's no way that the people who are our first line responders, who are in the trenches every single day and are dealing with unfathomable stress and difficulties and, you know, people going through the worst moments of their life. It's like, you can't rely on these people to keep, you know, holding up the entire society. Something's got to give eventually. And it's terrifying to think about, like, the people, the burnout, right? The burnout that's happening in that industry right now. So yeah, I think that's a great place to focus. And if we could have the genie snap, like, that's a good place to look first. But, you know, it's a stressful thing to think about right now for sure.
Yeah.
Question 3, what's the biggest misunderstanding or stigma that you've been dealing with in your work?
So, I'm not sure what you mean by my work.
Well, I mean, like the causes of philanthropy, you know, anything.
Yeah. So, I'll deal with the foundation. I don't know if stigmas, but I think sometimes people don't understand the role that endowment foundations play and how important they are. I think our model, which is primarily endowment based, is beyond proved itself throughout the 100 years, but certainly when the pandemic hit. When the pandemic hit, a lot of charities had their traditional revenue sources slashed, not available, couldn't conduct types of fundraising activities they did, and they had existential issues. And our model gives us some certainty to a certain extent, right, within a range of what our resources are to support the community. When you combine that with the knowledge that our board and in particular the staff have with all our partners out in the community, I just think it was incredible what the foundation did to get money out into the community to help our community so effectively. So, this endowment model is really, really an important part of our community. And if you kind of look at economics and markets and the sizes of what we do, it is kind of built to, it almost can't help but continue to be more successful in the future. If that makes any sense.
No, yeah.
I won't get into the whole thing, but the larger you get, the smaller your transaction costs get. The more diversified you can be. The more diversified you can be, better chances there that you're going to have more consistent returns over a longer period of time. And there's a book written by Thomas Piketty, a French economist, and he's got some great formulas in there that he even talks about foundations in there that kind of explains why this model should continue to be a tremendous resource for the community.
Yeah, we've internally been having a lot of discussions just on the communicate, at the staff level in general, of just like the model, what that means, how, because a lot of times people see like how much is getting donated, how much do we have in the bank, like how much is the endowment worth, and then all these conversations about like, well, should we be spending more, should we be spending less, should we be dipping into that thing. But what you said about like the consistency when other revenues get taken away, the stability and the foresight of this model, it shines through, and it's kind of like, well, this is why we do what we do, right? And I think that's a great answer as far as like, because it is a good discussion to have, but the proof is in the pudding. Like every single year when you're able to continue to be that support that the community relies on, there's no real, you can't really make an argument against it, because we're so consistent and steady, and we're just this pillar in the city that can hold up so many different parts of the philanthropic sector. But yeah. Question 4, what is a recent victory, either personally or professionally, that you're proud of?
Well, besides the Bombers winning a Grey Cup consecutively,
back to back,
which I can take absolutely no credit other than being a rabid fan. Well, it's not much you do on your own in life, but so as I said, I recently retired, and I think I would. I feel very good about the organization that I was part of for 21 years as their leader, because I worked with incredible men and women through that period of time. And we had the courage to follow a vision that, we came up with as an organization. We had also the courage to change it when it was being successful. Not an easy thing to do. It's easy to change when something isn't working, but something was working. But we just thought there was a better way, and we had the courage to do that. Mm. And then I think, so kind of bringing this to a close, I would say what I really feel good about that is that the team that is there now, I had an internal successor, is what makes me feel really good, because, somebody told me a long time ago, it's true, leadership isn't about what happens when you're there, it's about what happens when you're not there. And so I think in all organizations, at all levels, succession planning is really, really important. And I'm thrilled that the team that is at Cambridge Credit Union now and my successor will do a fabulous job, far better than I did, I'm sure.
Great answer. I know that's a good perspective and a good like thought to have. And I love that quote because like it's 100% true. And there that must have been a little bit or stressful for you being like, I'm leaving here. I've been a big part of this place for 20 years. Like what's going to happen after I'm gone, right? But as long as you have that process that you're a fan of, I think it's.
Well, look, no one is irreplaceable. My job is to work with the board to make sure they had an internal choice. It's up to the boards. CEOs don't hire future CEOs; the boards do. But you have a responsibility to help develop people.
Yeah, I think I've only been in this I call it my big boy job because it's not in the restaurant industry, but I've only been here for a few years, but I'm slowly learning the value of these processes and these boards. I kind of came in thinking like, why can't we just do things whenever we want and just like pick up the phone and just do it? Like, why do we have to go through all these layers of, it just takes too much time. That was my initial thought, but the stability, the process, it just creates this safety and value, whereas the decisions that are being made aren't just being made arbitrarily. There's a reason for everything, and I'm slowly learning that as a new to this whole industry, but I appreciate your insights. So yeah, thank you. Speaking of advice and insights, question 5 is, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Received a lot of good advice. Tried to listen to most of it. There's an expression I've used my whole life. I don't remember when I got it. I was probably about 6 years old, or maybe 5 or 7. I don't know. From my Baba. Tommy, stop, think, then think again. You know what? That's really good advice. And look at the world we're in now, right? There is no shortage of information. There is information everywhere. The ability to evaluate that information, think critically about it, etc. Those skills have always been important, but probably never more so than at this period in time. So my Baba knew what she was talking about.
That's such sage advice, because especially now when people are actively putting out false information on purpose to try to obfuscate and to try to confuse and to try to like muddy the waters of things, like I feel bad for people who just take everything at face value and don't stop and think again, because you're doomed. Like you're really doomed. How have you, like you said, you had a 20-year-old ish daughter. Like what's their generation dealing with this new world of social media and everything? Like how are they handling that?
You'd have to ask her.
Yeah. How have you been handling it?
What? So, I mean, she's she understands it better than I do.
For sure.
Because certainly my youngest daughter, who's, I don't know, am I allowed to give ages? I don't know. To be safe, I won't. But anyways, in her 20s, she grew up from the earliest time surrounded by digital everything, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a digital immigrant. She's not. So, she's kind of one of my gurus, right? Like I know if I need to ask something because I don't get it, like, why is this important? Why do people like this? I just ask her and then she makes it clear to me.
Mm-hmm. No, but, that advice is just so relevant for the digital realm, right? Because there's so much misinformation out there. There's so many bad actors out there that are trying to make chaos or whatever their reasoning is, right? So you have to be able to parse through the nonsense and get to the truth. And now more than ever.
Well, there's nothing new there. This has happened all throughout history. It's just the medium has changed, right? And it's so much easier to reach large audiences and do things. So that's why I think, stop, think, but think again. Just because you think you've got an answer, really step back and evaluate whether that is the right answer. Did you do this with your head or your heart or your gut, or what did you do this with? Yeah.
Truly sage advice from Baba. It's always good advice from Babas, right? Like they know what they're talking about for sure. Yeah. Question 6. What advice would you give your 10-year-old self if you could talk to him right now?
Don't think so linearly about the future. You don't know what opportunity is going to be coming your way. Don't be afraid to take a risk. If I think back to my mid-20s or early 20s anyways, I could never have predicted 90% of the things I've had the opportunity to be involved in. I also think about some of the courses I didn't take in university or I took nominally, right? And what was I thinking? Yeah, I know you want to be an accountant, but there's more to it than just accounting and finance, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think that's what I would tell myself.
Great advice. Did you say linearly or literally?
Linearly.
Right, yeah.
Do this, and then this, and then
Right.
that'll happen, and then this. And life isn't, maybe it was a couple hundred years ago, but it certainly doesn't work like that now. I mean, if you're getting an education right now for a job, half the jobs in the world 5 years, 10 years from now, I don't know, pick a number, haven't even been invented yet. So look what you're doing.
Yeah, what a time to be alive.
We didn't have this position 10 years ago at the Winnipeg Foundation, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I was brought on as the video production department, basically, right? Because that's just the world we're in now. We need content, as it were. So the wild time. Tom, thank you so much for talking to us. I can tell that you're very wise. Every time you've spoken at an event or anything, there's a quiet wisdom to your style. And I think it's great to have you at the helm of the foundation of the board right now. So thank you for doing this podcast. Much appreciated. The last question is the hardest one for people. Question 7 is, what do you want to be remembered for? If you've given it much thought.
Be remembered for? Well, look, first and foremost, I was a good son, a good husband, worthy of my children and grandchildren. If those things aren't true, then anything else I do probably doesn't really much matter. I don't know. I've been very blessed to meet so many great people and work with them. I can't answer that. If those things happen, then I'm sure everything else is fine. And as a friend of mine told me a long time ago, the number one determinant in how many people show up to your funeral is the weather. So
wisdom. Well,
yeah.
I was expecting a humble answer because I know you're known for your humility, and it was a perfect answer. So thank you very much, Tom. Look forward to working with you in the future, seeing you at the events once we can go outside and it's not minus 100 anymore. But I'm honored that you were on the show. Thank you for kicking off 2022 for us. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we let you go?
It was a lot of fun. Winnipeg Foundation is an incredible organization. So many people believe in what we do and help us in so many different ways and have for 100 years. And I just feel so excited about our future.
Me too. Yeah. Well said, sir. Thank you very much for being on the podcast. Tom Brick, the board chair of the Winnipeg Foundation. Thanks for being here.
Take care. Stay safe.